Mr. Shields, I'd just like to thank you for taking the time to come out to discuss the issues at hand. Appreciate the time, and I'm sure the long drive you had today. And
that's the last launch.
Yeah.
A compressor truck dropped something over here. The exit tonight, it was a real doozy. Everything else went well.
Good.
Thank you. I was asked here to come today to talk to this council about rights. Is it a right to say no to gas drilling, basically, is what it comes down to. And the answer, I guess, is really in the United States Constitution. It's generally found in Article 1 of your state constitutions. I can't speak to the Ohio Constitution all that well, but I certainly can speak to the Pennsylvania Constitution. In Article 1 is very clear about inalienable rights of citizens, that basically the citizen is trumps all. And in the United States Constitution, and if you want to go look a little deeper, and it scares the heck out of a lot of people, is it says that if you don't like your government, basically it's your duty as a citizen to either reform that government or get rid of it. So the question then becomes for everybody, what does a rights bill mean for, we'll close this. What's this rights bill mean for Broadview Heights, Ohio? We've only been here for 40 minutes. I grabbed a quick bite before I got here. It's a nice place, beautiful homes. Got a nice little highway with your commercial activity going on it. I'm sure you have a zoning ordinance so that the commercial activity is not over here in the neighborhood. Why? Well, you're elected officials. This is what you do. This is exclusive to municipal law heretofore in Pennsylvania and Ohio, is that you have the absolute authority on zoning. While the state generally can say how you're going to do things, how you're going to do banking, how you're going to do insurance, how you're going to do mineral exploitation and extraction. But it's the local that tells you where. It tells you where. And that's been black letter law in this country for I don't know how long. I guess when they first came up with the idea of zoning. And if you want to go even take a step back to the property rights issue. What are my rights as a property owner? I can do anything I want with the land, right? Well, sort of. And you can argue that it's unconstitutional to have zoning at all, if that's the case. But it's well settled law that we Americans are not bound by words carved in stone. We're bound a lot by practicality, but we always measure that practical approach against our Constitution. You can't have separate but equal. You can't tell women they can't vote. You can't tell black folk they can't vote. They got to vote before women. At least black men did. You know, we accepted these things as a cultural thing. The country had a culture, if you will, when it started. It grew. And it was no longer kind of more the Northern European, English-dominated, Presbyterian-dominated society. It became a very multicultural society, particularly in the last 100 years. And so things have changed. And the wisdom of the Founding Father was it gave us the ability to react to change and make our own new world. And so what happened to Broadview Heights, Ohio? Did anybody from the state legislature come here to address this body about this issue of preemption of local zoning ordinances in yours and my state? Did they? Why not? Let's see, what's their job? Representative? What's your job? You're a representative. You're a legislator. You're entrusted by this community exclusively to represent their interests and to look out for their health, their welfare, and their safety. That's what you took your oath of office. Uphold the Constitution of Ohio, the United States, and look to the health and welfare and safety of this community. So did your state rep. Why didn't they come? Why didn't they come and have a discussion with you about, well, geez, there's a lot of wet gaps under Ohio. We're on top of the Utica. Goes all the way out to Columbus, Ohio. And, well, geez, we didn't know anything about it. You guys don't know much about it either, but we need to sit down and have a discussion about that. And that never happened, did it? Why not? Why? The state put a law through that preempted your authority as a municipal official to look at the health, the welfare, and the public safety of this community. So what are you going to do about it? It's not for me to tell you what to do. I came here an invitation, and a lot of people expect me to tell you, you should do a rights bill, you should do this, you should do that. That's not my position. Far be it from me to tell you that. But I would ask you, did you do your due diligence? Did you partake in the discussions of the state legislature as they were going down this road on behalf of somebody, obviously, the oil and gas industry? It wasn't the muffler industry. It wasn't the hair salon industry. It wasn't United States Steel or Alcoa coming here and saying to the state of Ohio, you know, we really want to build a big Alcoa aluminum plant, Broadview Hts, but you know what? They got all these goofy ordinances and laws and stuff, and we want to build it right over there in the subdivision where the homes are. Would you allow for that? Would your citizens allow for that? Would the legislature entertain that from Alcoa or United States Steel or Cascade Cardboard or Joe's Milk Dairy or Mary's Hair Salon or Harry's Muffler Shop? I want to build my muffler shop in the middle of a residential neighborhood. Well, you can't. It's not zoned for that. Well, why? Why do you have zoning? So as to separate incompatible uses in my community. I have an industrial district over here. I have a highway commercial district over here. I got residential over there. I got institutional here with a school and so forth. But putting the mill in these particular zoning districts is really incompatible. The truck traffic, the noise, the dirt, the this, the that are incompatible with neighborhood uses. Now, imagine if you had just come to Broadview Heights about 2 years ago, bought a nice home, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 home. Well, you had a bargain with that person, whether you know it or not. When they came to your town to buy that home, and one of the things you always see on a realtor sheet of a home, what's the zoning? What's the school district? What's this? So when I buy a home in a residential area, I basically have a contract with you because you decided that this is going to be residential. And I buy the house fully expecting the municipality to stand by that. Why? Because I'm sinking everything I got into the biggest purchase I'll ever make, my home. It's where my equity will come from to leverage funds for my kids' education, maybe buy a car, fix the roof. But now, the bargain's broken. Now, I came into this residential neighborhood, and I found out that my assets are not protected by zoning. In fact, I find out worse yet, that the whole state of Ohio gave a preference to one industry, the oil and gas extraction industry. Not U.S. Steel, not Mary's Hair Salon, not the muffler shop, none of them, just one guy. So that they could come in and extract minerals and gas or whatever to the detriment of me. But I bought that house fully understanding that it's in an R1, R2 zone or something like that, that I have a reasonable expectation that my kid can ride up and down the street on a bike without too much worry. But now that's changed. Now I've got truck traffic coming into the neighborhood. Now I've got all kinds of people coming into my neighborhood. And not only are they coming to my neighborhood, but they're tearing up the land and they're setting up industrial sites 150, 200, 300, 400 feet from my home. Who's going to buy it? What if I don't like it and I got to leave and I pay? Is this township going to pay those people the loss? Are you? Is the Commonwealth of Ohio going to compensate for the loss? That's real. I've seen some photographs in the neighborhood where drilling's taking place. Nice homes. Who's going to cover the loss? Has anybody talked to the local realtors association and asked them what the impacts of this activity have on mortgage insurance? What do you cover on homeowners insurance, particularly if you're a leaseholder? Because a lot of leaseholders are finding if they in fact lease and allow a drill pad on their property, let's say they got 20 acres, and let's say something goes wrong, guess who's not paying on the claim? The homeowner's insurance, because they signed a contract with you for residential uses, not industrial. And you won't have coverage if something goes wrong on the site. Pollution, well fire, whatever. You're not going to get covered. And to give you an example of that, in Pennsylvania, where we had mine subsidence insurance is quite common and came out of the late 60s, early 70s, because of course, pretty much all western Pennsylvania is undermined to some extent. When we go out from the cities into the suburbs and the sub-suburbs to build these developments, we're basically building on top of a post-industrial use, a coal mine, and the houses had a bad habit of falling down when the land shifted. So we Pennsylvanians thought that that wasn't right. We're going to help our neighbors out. We're going to have a subsidized mine subsidence insurance program. It'll be sold by commercial insurance companies, but we'll pay a subsidy for the coverage because our neighbors aren't going to be able to cover themselves at a commercial rate. And so we have a subsidy. But if you read the law and you read the contract on mine subsidence insurance, it says this, that if you exculpate or release from liability any third party, you immediately have invalidated your insurance contract. Okay, so the guy in southwestern PA that sees all those dollar signs and signs the lease without checking with an attorney, without checking with other contracts they may have entered into, and how that might be in conflict with this lease, it's going to bring, you know, $200K to my pocket. What happened? And if you go look at leases, not all of them, and Urbina out of New York Times done a wonderful story on the leasing problems, and they reviewed over 100,000 leases and memorandums of leases at county deeds offices. There are leases out there that have exculpatory language for the lessor. If you're dumb enough to sign it, tough luck. And it says that you release them from liability. So then if you have a mine subsidence claim, the insurer is going to go, here's your money, and then they're going to go look for a third party. And they're going to come after you. You know, let's say you had a well get drilled a half mile down the road. Might be a cause where you're in the suit. I did 10 years as a litigation paralegal at 2 major law firms. Come on, you know, the plaintiffs are 2 and the defendants are 50. You're going to nail everybody, get them in there and see what you can settle out for. Whoever caused it, we'll find out later. But if you bring in the insurer to cover you on your claim and you signed a lease that said that the third party, the drilling company is not liable, and they're released from liability, then you don't get coverage on your mine subsidence insurance. This is one of those goofy things that come up all the time in this shale gas thing. As an elected official, I have dealt with a lot of different issues, from civil rights to trying to balance a budget that was a disaster, pension issues and so forth. I've never seen an issue that covers so much territory and impacts so many people all at one time. You know, you can deal with financial crises, you can deal with pension problems, you can deal with a lot of different things, but they generally are kind of concentrated on either one aspect or one area of the city. I've never seen anything that just covers everything. What is the impact of this community? Has the borough done, or is this town, is township? I'm sorry, am I in a township? City. The city of Broadview Heights. Has the city of Broadview Heights done an environmental impact study? I know your state has. Has the city of Broadview Heights done a health risk assessment. And until you do, we're all just talking about the view. We really don't know, do we? Although we do know a lot. We know that this industry gives off gases such as benzene, toluene, xylene, ethylbenzene, BTEX for short. These are all volatile organic compounds. They're also carcinogens. Clear carcinogens. There's not even a doubt about that. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. You know, let's not parse words. What's the environmental impact? And not just the birds and the bees, folks. The as-built environment, your roads, your bridges, your houses, your other structures, your other members of the community that have standing here. Do you have an answer for them? That's up to you. How can we go full bore into sitting on top of the second largest gas play in the United States of America and expect everything to be the same? It's not. It won't be. And I've had a lot of experience with the gas industry, just so you know who I am. I was a helmsman on an offshore oil boat out of Louisiana, going out to the rigs there. When I was in the legal profession, I started to move into environmental law in the early 80s because I felt it was a better way to make money. Litigation paralegals are a dime a dozen, go specialize in something. So I specialized in environmental law. I worked with 2 fine attorneys at Reed Smith. They only had 2 back in the 80s. Now you got whole law firms, whole groups, or the whole law firms dedicated to environmental law and regulatory work. My second position with Babs Callantone and Zonder was an environmental firm, almost exclusively. And I did a lot of regulatory work with Quaker State while they were in their drilling operations up in the Allegheny National Forest. I mean, I also wrote the tariff to unbundle in Pennsylvania to give consumer gas choice, and I worked very closely with the industry on that issue, on construction of the tariff and everything else. They unilaterally unbundled to give you gas choice. You know, you can call somebody up and pick your own supplier now. So I did that kind of work. So I've been around the gas industry a long, long time. And it was interesting how this, you know, I was getting ready to leave City Council. I didn't want to run. I was there 20 years, 8 years of some of the worst times cities ever had as far as finances go and everything. We put Humpty Dumpty back together, and I said, I'm going to do something else. But this came along, and here it is. And what are you going to do? I don't know. Can you have a ban? Let's talk about the ban. There's a lot of talk about that. First, there's no silver bullet in this matter. It's going to be a long, drawn-out, evolving affair governmentally. Now, what is here today is probably not going to be on the books in 5 years because it impacts. Because people may have heard about this in a very small way. They may have heard about the act in Ohio, but they have a hard time of projecting out to the future as how is that going to affect me? And what are them old guys all talking about up in Columbus? I don't know, some of it's in here. We have a real hard time as a society, as individuals, to project out and see what's going on or understand the relevance of what the news is talking about some building in Columbus. And now it's here. And now people are finding out that they don't have rights. But the gas company does. The drilling operations, I should say, do. They got more rights than you do. Apparently. They don't have to abide by local zoning. I do. Can you give me a pass for your parking meters? Can you pick out a citizen here tonight and say that you don't have to pay parking meters, everybody else does? There's a 14th Amendment question for you right there. Equal protection under the law, equal application of the law. And when you carve out a use by right statewide for uniformity, that's the battle cry, right? So they used to say, oh, we have to be uniform in the application. Maybe, maybe not. So what they did was they gave a use by right in Pennsylvania, and pretty much, correct me if I'm wrong, but in Ohio, pretty much along the same lines, a use by right conveyed to one industry. And when you convey special rights to somebody, that means that everybody else gets less. It just works out that way. You're in their backyard. I saw the photographs. There's drill rigs right at the end of the subdivision with a cul-de-sac and real pretty nice homes that everybody wants to live in. And there's an industrial site in the backyard. Does that make sense? Who's got rights? What rights do I have? So a lot of folks will go, oh, I went and talked to my solicitor, and he says, well, this would be wrong. It would be illegal. It would contravene state law. Has anybody taken the state law to court yet? We're taking it to court in Pennsylvania. Under Act 13, there's 7 municipalities, largely, by the way, Republican-based. And it's interesting to watch the wedge and how the Democrats are really taking advantage of the wedge between the Republican local official and the Republican leadership in Pennsylvania that promoted this bill. And I'm not here to say Dems are good or Republicans are good or whatever. I hold both parties in equal, not too happy about some of the stuff either side does. But this gets back down to us. So, you can't do this, your solicitor said you can't. But you're the governing body. Why not? No one's going to come and take you on a railroad car to Siberia. No one's going to shoot you. You're going to cause a question to be asked if you do that. If you assert your rights, because that's what they are, by the way. We're not talking about privileges. These are rights. As a town, to decide its character, do I want to be Vegas? Do I want to be some bucolic little Disney-esque kind of Main Street town? Or do I want to be something else? Do I want to be an Akron or a Pittsburgh or a New York City? It's up to local officials to make that decision in consultation with their community to decide the character of the community. This community decided its character by way of zoning. This community had one entity, an industry come in and go, we're different. How can that be? How can they be different than everybody else that's sitting behind me and everybody that's sitting in front of me? That you, the state, the great state of Ohio, conveyed special rights to one entity. And what's the question on that? So if you were to go forward with a rights bill, what would be the result to you personally? You probably get some phone calls from your higher ups in the state. Maybe they'll start twisting your arm a little bit on highway money or bridge money or whatever money you're looking for from the state. Maybe, that's politics. That's what goes with the game. No, there's nothing wrong with that. That's just part of the deal. But that's what probably would happen if the local councils start asserting their inherent authority. How can you be smaller than the big giant gas company? How could that be? Because I hear that too. Oh, but they're so big. They got lawyers by the dozens. They'll bleed us dry. How can any corporate entity be bigger than this? How can it be? This is the United States of America. This is our government, and you have the honor and the privilege of serving this community's interests in a very special way. No one understands what it's like to sit in those seats until they do. And I sat next to a guy for 12 years, and until I took my oath of office, after being the chief of staff for 12 years, I went, oh, is that what he was trying to tell me for 12 years? Because the perspective is very, very unique at that seat. And a lot of these folks don't understand why your wife won't let you go to the store for milk, because you won't come back for an hour and a half. Because you'll get caught in every aisle of the store while you're dodging everybody to get your milk, because you serve. So how can you be smaller than the big oil and gas? How can you be smaller than the state house? You're one of the biggest prizes in the world's ever known. You're an elected body that's here to serve your community in the best way possible, and to protect their health, their welfare, and their safety. And can you honestly go home tonight and look in the mirror and say, I'm doing that by allowing shale gas extraction to go on in and around residential areas, parks, or any other place there would never, any other similar entity wouldn't have the ability to do it at all. Marriott cannot build a motel down that street. Midas Muffler cannot put a garage on that street. And again, no one else can except one guy. Maybe the guy from Williams, maybe the guy from Anadarko, maybe the guy from Chesapeake or Consul. They're just carved out. And they get those rights. So by putting a rights bill on the table is one thing. Voting it, nothing happened to Pittsburgh. We weren't shot. We were not rounded up in the middle of the night and taken away to Siberia. We weren't even sued. And municipalities that chose to take the zoning route were sued. Cecil Township, Mount Pleasant Township, Hickory, I go on, particularly in Washington County where it's real intensive. If you ever want to come down, I'll arrange for a bus and we'll go take the hydrofracturing tour of Washington County so that you can see what this looks like. It's hard to visualize. You want to see this before you start theorizing about it. And go talk to the people. And go find out how many can't talk to you because they signed confidentiality agreements because their health and their welfare and their safety were gone. And they did get injury and they settled for what? They settled to get out. They settled with the company to go away and they signed confidentiality agreements. So they're not even permitted to talk to you about it. There's something wrong here. And I'm not a very pragmatic politician. I'm all for jobs. I'm all for energy independence. I'm all for economic development, trying to get the city's balance sheet in good shape. But how's your balance sheet going to look when your property tax values go down? You got appeals? Yes, you do. If I was down the street and I paid $400,000 for a home, you know I'm going to be at the county. Well, my home ain't worth anything. And I'm going to bring a couple real estate agents for you. What would you list it for? Or bring a banker along with me that says, well, I wouldn't write a refi or a mortgage on that property because it's not worth anything. That happens. That happens every day. So how are you going to deal with that? So what's a rights-based thing do? Well, there's a practical impact. The wonderful thing about the courts is they presume that legislatures, when they enact something, enact it constitutionally. So the presumption is with you. The other thing is that the state did one thing over here. You get to go do another thing if you want to. It's up to you. And then what happens if you do? And now you're in conflict with state law. We said, well, come and get it. Come down and have a talk with us. Just tell us we don't have any rights. Just tell my neighbors they don't have anything to say about this. Just tell all of us to shut up and go away. Or do I have rights? And so what you do is, well, you can have a law that says separate but equal, or no mixed marriages, and women can't vote, and all that stuff. And those laws, when they're held up to the Constitution, all kind of melted away into the past. You have an obligation to call the question. You can not do that, but I would argue as an elected official, you have an obligation because you're where the buck stops here at the end of the political food chain at the local level to call the question and say, no, we're asserting our rights. And if the state wants to come in and argue that with us, okay, let's have that argument. Let's have that discussion. Let's get the people involved in this. And let's find out where we stand. But it's not going to be cataclysmic, I'll tell you that. It may be ignored. Better to go around you and out the door. Now, I had a meeting in Akron, Ohio. I was invited to come meet with citizens at a home. There were probably over half of them, about 40 people there, 30 people. Half of them were elected officials from all different parts of Ohio. And they're not happy. And neither are the local officials in Pennsylvania, that now they got a lawsuit going. They called the question. Nothing wrong with calling the question. Said, wait a minute, what gives you the right to come in and usurp my municipal authority and power to do what I do? In Pittsburgh, and I'm going to finish with this. In Pittsburgh, under our zoning code, we got a lot of universities and institutions in Pittsburgh. And whatnot. The section of Oakland, if anybody's been there, they know it. It's full of this stuff, and it's called an EMI district under our zoning code, Educational, Medical, and Institutional Zone. But we require them all to file master plans for 10 years in the city of Pittsburgh, and it goes through our planning commission. There's public discussion, and CMU wants to go build out this way, or it wants to go here, or UPMC. And the reason why we have that under the zoning code is so that we're not working at cross purposes with these institutions in the city. Big ones. And some not so big. Pittsburgh Theological Seminary is not that big, but they had a file plan too. 10 years, what's your campus going to look like over the next 10 years? And then it has to be voted on and then adopted as a part of the zoning code after a fairly rigorous review process, planning commission, public dialogue, community-based organizations in and around the campus areas are going to sit down and everything else. They're going to have to file this. But if it's oil and gas coming into your community, where do the pipelines go? Anybody have a map? Where are the well pads going? Where are the compressor stations going to get permitted as a minor air source singularly, because they're designed to be under certain levels of what they're going to blow off, but cumulatively in the region, they have a broader impact to your health because of the VETX and other things that are off-gassing off these sites. Where are the frack ponds going to be? In Pennsylvania, we increased the setback to 1,500 feet from 200 for a well pad, but not for a frack pond. Is that in the state act? The well pad's going over here somewhere, and they can go about 1.5 miles to 2 miles now out laterally. But where's the compressor station? Where's the gathering pipelines? Where's the impoundments going? Do you know? Could I build this building across the street and just say, hey guys, I'm going to build this building? I guess it's a school, but I'm not going to even tell you what it is. What would you guys do? Throw me out of here. Go get a permit. Go file. Go obey the zoning code. No, I'm just going to build something here. It's big and it's noisy and it stinks. Okay, that's a good idea. But so a university, a large institution in Pittsburgh has to give me a 10-year plan so at least I can understand what they're doing so I can help work the rest of the community development planning as well. But here, I'm on the blind. I don't know where the pipelines are going. You know, the well goes in, that gas got to go somewhere, and that's a 30-foot right-of-way. And you put that 30-foot right-of-way in with a gas line, that's land out of production for you guys. That is not going to get developed. That is not going to be a Gitco gas station or a Giant Eagle or anything else. It's going to be nothing but grass. That's off your books. And you don't get taxes for it either. Where's the well? How many well pads? I talked to a borough council in Pennsylvania, a lower borough, that had done an ordinance on zoning within the framework of what even the restrictions they had under the Oil and Gas Act of Pennsylvania earlier. And I looked it over. It's very thick, well written, and it's all about noise and traffic. And I said, great. I said, what about density? And they go, what do you mean? I said, well, how many wells are you going to have in Lower Borough? Which is maybe 2-3 square miles. 2, 5, 100, 1,000. And you guys understand density. You deal with it in your zoning code. Your houses and your residential lots have to have so much of a setback in the front and the back and the sides. Why? Density. Or how many are you going to have? If I came to your town and said, I'm going to put 500 homes on 2 acres, okay? Well, gee, I don't think so. So what's the density impact? How many wells are you going to have? And if you don't know the answer to that question, then how are you going to plan your community house-wise? How are you going to plan housing, commercial, all that other stuff? When you got a wild card coming in, all, you know, that you don't understand, don't know where they're going, don't know what they're going to do, don't know how many compressor stations are going to be in the town, don't know how many stripper distillation to heat up the gas, to evaporate it and to get dry gas out of it and separate the wet gas. They'll be around, they blow off nice things to breathe. And we're the frack ponds. By the way, in Texas, we call Texas Railroad Commission, they laughed at us when we told the guy on the phone that we have open frack pits. And he said, oh, we would never allow that in Texas. And they don't. Come on. So what do you got, you know, let me ask you, put it to you this way. What do you got to lose if you don't? And what do you got to lose if you do? Enact the ban. And I think the part about what do you got to lose if you don't is still on your ledger no matter what you do. Because it's here. Extraction industries are here, they're starting to drill, they're drilling in your town, they're drilling in your neighborhood. So you know you're going to have to confront those issues, and you know that there are going to be citizens that are honking mad at you, and they're going to watch value go down in their investment, and that's going to show up in your tax base by lower property assessments. So if you went over here and did nothing, and didn't do a ban, didn't call up your state rep and senator and ask them to come sit at this table in front of a crowd of citizens and ask them to explain their vote to you, you don't do any of that. But if you went over here and enacted the rights bill, now you did something. Now you're calling the question. Now you're pushing the envelope. Maybe you might think you're on thin ice, but again, you're not going to get physically hurt. Mentally, you're going to get beat up a little bit and spend some sleepless nights, but not so bad considering what goes on in the rest of the world with the step out of line. This is the place where we always step out of line. This is the place where we call the question. This is where he says who? You and whose army? It could come into my town, start extraction in the extraction industry, and given license by the state to disregard every local ordinance I have on land use. I think it's worth calling the question. And that's what we did in the city of Pittsburgh. And we were never sued. We haven't been drilled. They made a lot of noise and said a lot of things in the papers, and nobody touched us. And then also we went out in West Homestead, the borough of next door to us, across the Monongahela River, the borough of Homestead, the borough of Baldwin, the borough of Forest Hills, and the borough of Wilkinsburg, in and around the city, all enacted their own bans. Not one of them, not one, was ever called by opposing counsel and noticed that you're now being sued. And I'll tell you why. So that's the black and white side. But the white side is politically, it's a real hard sell to go into a community and tell everybody you don't have any rights. If you really want to call the question, put it on a ballot and amend your home rule charter. Put it there. Let's see what the people say. Like they did in State College last November. That thing went, it was amended 3-1. And some of the state senators are wagging their finger, you do this. Well, who died made you king? Last I checked, I got a vote. I tried for something here. And the people of Penn State enacted a ban, not by way of their council like we did in Pittsburgh, but they incorporated it into their charter by referendum. And I dare somebody, a political figure from on high, to come down to your town and tell the people, your vote don't count. Your rights don't matter. So again, what's the loss? And what are you up to? What's your plan for this? And I'll give you a third out. Here's the political out. And you guys can't listen to this either. Okay. This is just between politics. That if you voted, you're off the hook politically. These people, you go, hey, I did it. That guy survived. He kind of slapped us around and told us we don't count for nothing. Now you're off the hook. You're still with the community. I did it. We didn't want it. We put it in. The state came in, did all this legal stuff, whatever. Said it ain't worth the paper it's written on. What not? At least you made a statement. At least you backed up your neighbor. At least you spoke on behalf of the community. Something, unfortunately, the state legislature of Pennsylvania and Ohio didn't seem to think it was important enough to do. Because we didn't have any hearings in our state either. We didn't. You're sitting on trillions and trillions of cubic feet of gas and trillions of bucks. And all this is a big game changer. Oh, it's a game changer. It's a bridge fuel to the future. And I'm like, okay, what's the game and what are we changing it to? And I never get an answer. We have to do this right. How many times you heard that come out of a politician's mouth up in the State House? We have to do this right. Really? Tell me, how are you going to do it right? The burden's on you. You're the moving party. How are you going to do this right? That's a great talk of whipping. Guess what? I need a little more than that. It's a bridge fuel to the future. Bridge to where? This is going to be the longest bridge you ever saw in your life. Makes that Alaska Highway Bridge look like nothing. What is the American policy on energy? I don't know. I haven't a clue. I don't think anybody does in this country right now. You know, when everybody's saying the right things to the right people in a presidential election here, because you don't want to make anyone mad enough at you not to write you a check or vote for you, maybe. But what's the policy? Drill the hell out of this